Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. Somewhere in the quiet corners of time, before our paths ever crossed, before we knew each other's names, before the world even gave us a chance to meet, I wrote something for you, not a message meant for you, not a message meant for everyone, not words for the world to read, just a secret letter meant only for one heart. My future wife, wherever you are right now, maybe you're walking through a difficult day. Maybe you're smiling with friends. Maybe you're chasing dreams you haven't told anyone about yet. You don't know me today, but somehow my heart already knows you exist. And that's why this letter was written. It's not written with perfect words. It's written with patience, with hope, with the quiet promise that somewhere in this big, chaotic world, two souls are slowly finding their way to each other. This letter was never meant to be opened by strangers. It was never meant to be understood by people who don't know our story, because only one person can truly read it. Only the woman who will one day hold my hand in silence, who will understand my broken moments without explanation, who will see the real me behind the smiles and the scars. My future wife, this letter was left for you, not for today, not for yesterday, but for the moment when our lives finally meet and you realize that these words were always waiting just for you. My future wife, somewhere in this world, your life is moving forward right now. Maybe you are walking through a crowded street. Maybe you are sitting quietly with your thoughts. Maybe you are smiling at something small that nobody else noticed. You don't know me yet, and I don't know where you are at this exact moment, but somehow, deep inside my heart, I know that you exist, and that feeling is strange in the most beautiful way. Because before our eyes ever meet, before our hands ever touch, before we even say our first words to each other, I have already written something for you. A secret letter, not a letter made with ink and paper that can be lost in time, but a letter written slowly, carefully, inside the quiet spaces of my heart. It's a letter that no crowd can read. It's a letter that no crowd can read. It's a letter that no stranger will ever understand because it was written for only one person, you. Maybe right now, life feels confusing for you. Maybe there are days when the world feels too loud, too heavy, too complicated. Maybe there were moments when people misunderstood your heart, moments when you gave love but didn't receive the same warmth in return. I want you to know something. Even before we meet, your story matters to me. Every tear you ever tried to hide, every silent prayer you whispered when nobody was listening, every moment you stood strong even when your heart felt tired, those moments are not invisible. They are part of the reason this letter exists, because somewhere out here, there is a man who believes that one day our paths will cross in the most unexpected way. Not like a scene from a movie, not perfectly planned, but quietly, naturally. Maybe we will meet on a simple day when neither of us is looking for anything extraordinary. Maybe it will be a moment so normal that at first we won't realize how important it is, but something inside us will recognize something familiar, like two souls remembering a promise they made a long time ago. And when that moment comes, you won't know it yet, but the letter I wrote for you will already be waiting. This letter holds things I cannot say to the world. It holds the truth about love that most people forget. Love isn't loud. Love isn't always dramatic. Sometimes love is quiet, patience. It's choosing someone even on ordinary days. It's standing beside someone when life becomes heavy and complicated. My future wife, the letter tells you that you were never just someone I hoped to meet. You were someone I believed in, even before I knew your name, even before I knew your name, even before I knew your smile. Because real love isn't something that suddenly appears one day like lightning. Sometimes it grows quietly in the background of our lives, preparing two people who are still strangers. Maybe right now, you are working hard for your dreams. Maybe you are fighting battles that nobody around you fully understands. Maybe you are learning lessons about life that make your heart stronger. And without realizing it, every step you take is bringing you closer to the moment when this letter will finally make sense. The world might introduce us like we are meeting for the first time, but the truth is, our hearts will feel like they have known each other longer than that. And when you look into my eyes for the first time, I won't see a stranger. I will see the woman who unknowingly carried half of my story, because every love story that truly matters begins long before two people meet. It begins in the quiet choices they make while they are still walking separate paths. It begins in the strength they build through difficult days. It begins in the kindness they show to people who may never thank them. My future wife, the letter holds a promise that when life becomes overwhelming, you won't have to face it alone. Not because I am perfect, not because I have all the answers, but because I believe love is not about saving someone. It's about standing beside them while they discover their own strength. I imagine the moment when you finally read this letter, not with your eyes, but with your heart, and suddenly you will understand why some moments in your past felt lonely, why some connections in your life were only temporary, why certain people came into you, life, just to teach you something and then quietly disappeared, because they were never meant to stay forever. They were only chapters. But you were always meant to be the story. And the letter was written slowly, through years of patience and hope. Every time I learned something about kindness, another sentence appeared in that letter. Every time life taught me humility, another line was added. Every time I realized that love is not about possession, but about respect, the letter became stronger. Because when you finally arrive in my life, I don't want to greet you with empty words. I want to greet you with understanding of your fears, understanding of your dreams, understanding that the person standing in front of me has lived an entire life before meeting me. My future wife, wherever you are tonight, I hope you know something. You don't have to rush your journey. You don't have to force love into your life just because the world says time is moving fast. The right love never arrives through pressure. It arrives through patience. And when the day comes that we finally meet, the letter I wrote for you won't feel like a mystery anymore. It will feel like recognition, like two pieces of a quiet truth finally coming together. Because in a world where so many words are spoken carelessly, this letter was written with intention. Every thought inside it carries a piece of the future we have not lived yet. A future where laughter fills ordinary mornings, where silence between us feels peaceful instead of uncomfortable, where love is not something we prove to the world, but something we quietly protect together. My future wife, somewhere in your life right now, you might be wondering if real love still exists. You might be questioning whether two people can truly understand each other without pretending. If you could hear my heart right now, you would know. The answer is yes, because this letter exists for a reason. Not everyone will understand it, not everyone will believe in it, but you will, because you are the only person it was written for. And when the moment finally comes that our lives intersect, you won't need anyone to explain the meaning behind these words. Your heart will recognize them the same way mine recognized you long before we ever met, like a quiet message traveling through time, waiting patiently for the one person who was always meant to read it. Somewhere in this world, while life moves in thousands of different directions, there is a quiet connection that most people never notice. It doesn't make noise. It doesn't ask for attention, but it exists between two people who haven't met yet. Two souls walking different roads, learning different lessons, carrying different memories. My future wife, this is the invisible connection between you and me. Right now, we might be living completely separate lives. You might wake up in the morning thinking about your plans for the day, the responsibilities waiting for you, the dreams you are still trying to reach. I might be doing the same somewhere else, unaware of the small moments shaping your life. But there is something beautiful about the idea that even while we are strangers today, our journeys are slowly preparing us for each other. Life has a strange way of doing that. Sometimes it places people in our lives who stay only for a short time. They teach us something, leave us with a lesson, and then quietly disappear. At the time, it may feel confusing, even painful. We wonder why certain connections couldn't last longer, why certain hearts could not stay beside us. But later, when we look back, we begin to understand those moments were not mistakes. They were preparation. Every disappointment, every misunderstanding, every silent goodbye, they slowly shape the kind of love we are capable of giving when the right person finally arrives. My future wife, maybe you have felt alone in some chapters of your life. Maybe there were nights when you questioned whether anyone in this world would truly understand your heart. Maybe you wondered if the kind of love that feels calm, honest, and real even exists anymore. If you ever felt that way, I want you to know something. Somewhere out there, someone was growing through his own storms at the same time. Someone was learning patience, learning kindness, learning that love is not about perfect words or dramatic promises. Love is about presence. Love is about choosing someone again and again, even on ordinary days. And while you were learning your lessons, I was learning mine. While you were becoming stronger in ways nobody noticed, I was slowly becoming the kind of man who could recognize the beauty in your strength. That is the invisible connection. It's not something we planned. It's something life quietly created while we were busy living. Two people growing separately so that when they finally meet, they recognize something familiar in each other. My future wife, I imagine that somewhere in your past, there were moments when you felt misunderstood, moments when people saw only the surface of who you were, but never took the time to see the depth inside you. Maybe you smiled when you were hurting. Maybe you stayed strong for others even when you needed comfort yourself. Those hidden moments, they matter. They are part of the quiet strength that makes you who you are today. And the invisible connection between us understands those moments without needing an explanation. Because somewhere along my journey, I learned what it means to respect a heart that has carried pain but still chooses kindness. I learned what it means to value someone not for perfection but for their honesty. The world often teaches people to chase excitement, to look for loud expressions of love that shine brightly for a moment but disappear quickly. But the connection between two souls who are meant to meet is different. It grows quietly, it waits patiently, it doesn't rush. Somewhere right now, you might be laughing with friends, sharing stories, or thinking about your future. You might be building dreams you haven't told anyone yet. Maybe you are working hard to create a life that feels meaningful to you. And without realizing it, every step you take is guiding you closer to a moment that will feel surprisingly natural. A moment when our lives cross paths, not with fireworks or dramatic music playing in the background, but with something simpler, a feeling of calm recognition, like two people suddenly realizing that the search they didn't even know they were on has quietly come to an end because the invisible connection between us was never about coincidence. It was about timing, the kind of timing that only life understands. If we had met too early, maybe we wouldn't have recognized each other's value. Maybe we would still be learning lessons that needed to happen first. But life waits. It allows us to grow. It gives us time to understand ourselves before we are asked to understand someone else. My future wife, there is something powerful about knowing that real love doesn't force itself into existence. It appears when two people are ready to protect it, ready to respect it, ready to respect it, ready to build something deeper than temporary excitement. And that is what this invisible connection holds. It holds patience. It holds quiet faith that somewhere out there is a person who sees love not as a game, not as a moment of entertainment, but as something meaningful enough to protect while the world rushes forward, chasing the next distraction, the next temporary feeling. Two souls are slowly moving closer without even realizing it. That's the mystery of it. You might be having an ordinary day when we finally meet. Maybe you will not expect anything special. Maybe I won't either, but something subtle will happen. in that moment. The air between us will feel different, not magical in the way stories describe, but peaceful, comfortable, like two people who have finally arrived somewhere they were always meant to reach. And in that moment, even if we don't understand it, right away, the invisible connection between us will quietly reveal itself. It will show itself in small ways, in the way our conversations feel natural instead of forced, in the way silence between us doesn't feel awkward, in the way we begin to understand each other without long explanations. Because real connection does not require performance, it does not require pretending. It only requires honesty. My future wife, the world may call it coincidence when two people meet, but sometimes coincidence is just the surface of something deeper. Sometimes it is the final step of a long journey two hearts were taking separately. And when that journey brings us face to face, we might not immediately realize how many years life spent preparing us for that single moment, how many lessons shaped us, how many quiet changes inside our hearts made us ready to recognize each other. The invisible connection between two souls is not loud enough for the world to notice, but it is strong enough to guide two lives toward the same place, slowly, patiently, without rushing. And somewhere in the quiet rhythm of life, while days turn into months and months turn into years, two strangers continue walking forward, unaware that every step is gently closing the distance between their hearts. My future wife, there will come a day that feels completely ordinary at first. A day that begins like so many others. The morning light will fall softly through a window somewhere in the world. People will move through their routines, conversations will happen, cars will pass on busy streets, and life will continue in its quiet rhythm. But hidden inside that ordinary day will be a moment that changes everything. A moment when you finally read the letter that was always meant for you. Not a letter folded in an envelope, not a message waiting on a table somewhere, but a letter written slowly through time, written through patience, through lessons, through quiet hope. The moment you read it will not be dramatic. It will not need the world's attention. It will happen in the simple space between two people, realizing they are no longer strangers. Maybe we will meet somewhere unexpected. Maybe our first conversation will begin with something small, something ordinary like two people sharing a moment without knowing that it is the beginning of something meaningful. You might not realize it at first. I might not either. But slowly, through simple conversations and quiet moments, something will begin to unfold. You will start to feel something familiar in the way I listen when you speak, not just hearing your words, but understanding the emotions behind them. And I will notice something beautiful in the way you carry yourself, in the kindness that appears in the small things you do without thinking. Because kindness is never loud. It reveals itself in gentle ways. My future wife, the day you finally read the letter will not be the day I hand you something written on paper. It will be the day you look into my eyes and realize that the words waiting for you have always been there. You will read them in the way I respect your thoughts. You will read them in the way I choose patience instead of anger when life becomes difficult. You will read them in the quiet moments when silence between us feels peaceful instead of uncomfortable, because the letter was never meant to be read once. It was meant to be lived, line by line, moment by moment by moment. Some people believe love begins with excitement and strong emotions that appear suddenly like a storm, but the love written inside this letter will feel different. It will feel calm. It will feel safe. It will feel like two people slowly discovering that they have found a place where they can finally be themselves. No pretending, no masks, just honesty. My future wife, when you finally read the letter, you might remember moments from your past when you wondered why certain things happened the way they did. You might think about the days when you felt lonely even while surrounded by people, the times when you gave your heart to situations that could not understand its value, and suddenly those memories will feel different, because you will understand that those chapters were not meant to define your story forever. They were only steps leading you towards something better, something real. The letter you read will not promise a perfect life, because perfection is not what love is about. It will promise something deeper. It will promise that when life becomes heavy, you will not carry its weight alone. It will promise that your dreams will matter just as much as mine. It will promise that your voice will never be ignored in the place we build together. And when difficult days arrive, as they always do in every life, the letter will remind you that love is not about avoiding struggles. It is about standing beside someone who refuses to walk away when those struggles appear. My future wife, the day you finally read the letter will also be the day you realize something beautiful. You will realize that love did not arrive suddenly in that moment. It was quietly growing long before we even noticed it. Every conversation we shared, every moment we spent learning about each other, every time we chose understanding about each other, every time we chose understanding instead of pride, those moments slowly formed the words of the letter. And one day, without needing to say it out loud, we will both recognize that something important has happened. Two lives that once moved in completely different directions have found a way to move forward together. Not because of pressure, not because of expectations from the world, but because something inside our hearts feels peaceful when we stand beside each other. My future wife, when you read the letter, you will understand why it could only belong to one person, because only one person carries the experiences, the strength, and the heart capable of understanding its meaning. Only one person walked through life in a way that allowed her to recognize these words when she finally saw them, and that person is you. There will be moments when we sit together in silence, doing nothing extraordinary, and suddenly you will feel the truth behind the letter. In the quiet comfort of simply being together, in the warmth of knowing that someone beside you respects your soul, in the small laughter we share over simple things that might seem meaningless to the rest of the world. And you will realize that the letter was never about grand gestures. It was about the quiet promise of presence, a promise that someone will be there not only in the brightest moments of life, but also in the quiet, complicated ones. The promise that your heart will always be treated with care. My future wife, the world will continue to move quickly around us. People will chase excitement, distractions, and temporary feelings, but the letter you read will remind you of something simple and powerful. Real love does not rush. It grows slowly, patiently, through everyday moments that seem small but carry deep meaning. And one day you will look back at the moment we first met and smile at how ordinary it seemed, because inside that ordinary moment was the beginning of something extraordinary. The moment when the secret letter finally found the one person who was always meant to read it. The moment when two separate journeys quietly became one shared path. And somewhere in that quiet understanding, while the world continues its endless motion, two hearts will recognize that the search they never fully understood has finally reached the place it was always leading them.